Hello, I'm Carlton Van Putten, founder and CEO of PayRent. Welcome to the Keys to Success podcast, where we unlock the secrets to smarter investments, smoother tenant management, and bigger profits, one episode at a time. Ready to master your property game? Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everybody. This time, we're going to be talking about
Lease guarantors.
lease guarantors.
Yes.
Now, this is something that, if you've rented an apartment, you've probably at least heard of these things.
Yes, definitely.
And maybe you've needed one, maybe you've been one, I don't know.
Right.
But it can be a little bit of a confusing topic. So we're going to try to kind of unpack it a little bit today.
Absolutely.
And maybe we'll start with just, a real basic, like what is a lease guarantor?
Yeah. So a lease guarantor, it's kind of like a cosigner for a rental.
Okay.
So if you don't have, sufficient credit history or income or rental history, a landlord might ask you to have someone co-sign the lease with you.
Okay. So it's almost like a backup.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
Right.
backup for the landlord in case the tenant can't fulfill the terms of the lease.
Right. Like my buddy just graduated college.
Right.
Moved to a new city, had a job lined up, credit score is great,
Mm-hmm.
but no rental history.
Mm-hmm.
And the landlord was like, you need a guarantor.
Wow, yeah.
And
Super
typically-
common.
So that's kind of like the classic example.
Yeah, and that's, in competitive rental markets, that's extremely common.
Okay, so the guarantor is basically saying, like, I'm vouching for this person.
Exactly, yeah.
They're going to pay their rent.
Exactly. They're vouching that that tenant is going to pay the rent and fulfill all the terms of the lease.
Okay, so it's not just about if they miss a payment.
No, it's about everything.
It's like if they damage the place or...
Damage the place, beyond normal wear and tear, and also that they're upholding all the terms of the lease agreement.
So it sounds like it's kind of a way for people who may not, like, traditionally qualify
Yes.
to be able to get into a place.
Exactly. So it opens doors for people who might have credit barriers.
Right.
Maybe they're new to the country, they're building a new credit history, maybe they're recovering from past financial issues.
Yeah.
It helps them secure housing and contributes to a more inclusive rental market.
Okay, so that makes sense. But becoming a guarantor, that sounds like a pretty big commitment.
It is a big commitment.
Yeah. What kind of qualifications are landlords looking for from potential guarantors?
So landlords are basically looking for the same things they would look for in a tenant.
Okay.
They want to see good credit history, stable income, and they'll often run a background check as well.
So they're really looking for someone who's, pretty solid.
Yeah, exactly. They want to minimize their risk.
It's like when you buy a used car.
Yes, exactly.
You want to check its history. You want to make sure it's not a lemon.
Right. You want to make sure you're not inheriting someone else's problem.
Exactly. So anyone who's thinking about becoming a guarantor, I mean, they should really do their homework.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need to understand the potential implications and the legal responsibilities involved.
Okay, so this is not just a casual, like, oh, sure, I'll sign this for you.
No, this is a serious legal document,
Yeah.
and you're taking on real financial liability.
Okay, so you could actually be on the hook.
Yes, you could be on the hook for potentially thousands of dollars
Wow.
if the tenant defaults on the lease.
And it could affect your own credit.
Absolutely, it can affect your credit score as well.
Wow. Okay, so this is serious business.
Yeah, it's not something to take lightly.
So what about let's say someone can't find a guarantor,
Right.
or they're just like, I don't even want to ask anybody
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Are there other options?
Yes, there are definitely other options.
Okay, what are some of those?
So one option that's becoming increasingly popular is rental insurance.
Okay.
And so rental insurance can cover unpaid rent and property damage.
So it's kind of like a safety net?
It's a safety net for both the tenant and the landlord.
Okay.
Another option is a cosigner.
Oh, so that's different than a guarantor.
It is a little different. A cosigner is usually someone who's actually sharing the lease and the financial responsibility with the tenant.
So they're actually living there.
Yes,
Exactly.
okay.
That's like a roommate situation.
Yeah, like a roommate or a partner.
Okay.
And then there are also some programs offered by property management companies
Oh, yeah.
where they'll essentially act as a guarantor service for a fee.
So like they're a middleman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They assess the tenant's financial situation, and if they approve them, they step in to cover rent or damages if needed.
So for someone who doesn't have like a parent
Mm-hmm.
or somebody that can do that,
Right.
this is like a way for them to still be able to.
Exactly. It gives them a way to qualify for a lease.
Okay. That's really interesting. I've never even heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a relatively new option.
So, okay, so let's say someone does have a guarantor.
Okay.
Things are going well, they're paying their rent, they're taking care of the place.
Right.
Can they ever, like, graduate
Yes.
absolutely from needing a guarantor?
Yes, you can definitely work towards releasing a guarantor from their obligation.
Okay, how's that work?
So the key is demonstrating financial stability over time.
Okay, so you're paying your rent on time.
Paying rent on time, taking good care of the property, communicating openly with your landlord,
Okay.
Really showing them that you are a responsible tenant.
Gotcha. So it's like you're leveling up
Exactly.
in a video game.
Yes, you're gaining skills and trust.
You're gaining experience.
Right, and then you can approach your landlord and have a conversation about potentially releasing the guarantor.
Okay, so like how would you even start that conversation?
I think, you start by highlighting your positive rental history.
Right.
Express your desire to move forward without a guarantor.
Right.
And it might also be helpful to provide some evidence of your financial stability.
Like bank statements and stuff.
Exactly, like recent pay stubs, bank statements, anything that shows that you are financially responsible.
Okay, so but if the landlord says, yeah, that's fine, you don't need a guarantor anymore.
Right.
Is that good enough or is there like paperwork involved?
You always want to have something in writing.
Okay.
So you want to get a formal release agreement
Okay.
signed by both you and the guarantor.
Gotcha.
And that clearly states that the guarantor is no longer financially responsible for the lease.
Okay, so it's always better to have that.
Always better to have it in writing.
Yeah, CYA.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, this has been really helpful.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I'm learning a lot.
Awesome.
It seems like these lease guarantors are a really important part of the rental market.
They are very important.
Yeah, it helps landlords feel secure.
Right.
But it also helps, people who maybe wouldn't traditionally qualify
Right.
to be able to get into a place.
Exactly. It helps to open doors.
But like with any kind of legal agreement,
Yes.
you really got to know what you're getting into.
Absolutely. You need to understand the responsibilities and the risks involved.
Yeah, so whether you're a renter, a landlord, or a potential guarantor,
Right.
it's good to be informed.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
There you go.
Yes.
All right, well, we're going to continue this deep dive after a short break.
Okay.
We're going to talk more about, becoming a guarantor.
Mm-hmm.
What are the risks? What should you think about before you agree to do this?
Absolutely.
So stick around. We'll be right back.
Sounds good.
So before the break, we were talking about, releasing a guarantor,
Right.
getting that all squared away.
Yeah.
But it made me think about the other side of that. Like, what about somebody who's thinking about becoming a guarantor?
Yes.
What should they be thinking about?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And, it's not something to be taken lightly.
Right.
You're essentially vouching for someone else's financial stability.
Right. You're putting your neck on the line.
You are, and you're agreeing to cover their potential debts.
Right.
So, first and foremost, you need to be comfortable with the level of risk involved.
Yeah, like, can I actually afford this?
Exactly. Can you realistically afford to cover the rent and potential damages if the tenant defaults?
Right. And if I have to cover that, is that going to, like, mess up my own finances?
Right. Would it impact your own financial goals or your own stability?
Yeah. Got to think about that.
Yeah, those are hard questions, but they're essential to answer, honestly.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times when we talk about this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we're so focused on, like, the tenant,
Right.
but the guarantor needs to be thinking about this too.
Absolutely. The guarantor's financial well-being is just as important.
Yeah, it's like you're co-signing a loan.
Exactly.
You're basically putting your own credit on the line.
You are.
So, okay, so beyond the money part of it,
Right.
what about the relationship?
Yes, that's huge.
Because if you're co-signing for your kid or your friend or whatever,
Right.
what happens if they don't pay their rent and
Yeah.
you have to step in?
Right. Are you going to resent them? Is it going to create tension in the relationship?
Yeah, nobody wants to have that conversation.
Exactly. So it's really important to have open and honest conversations about expectations and potential challenges before you sign anything.
That's a good point. So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's say somebody has decided, okay, I'm comfortable with the risk, I'm going to do this.
Okay.
What are some things they can do to, like, protect themselves?
Yeah. So first and foremost, you need to thoroughly review that lease agreement.
Yeah.
Don't just skim it, understand all the terms and conditions.
Make sure you read the fine print.
Exactly. Understand the rent amount, the length of the lease, the responsibilities of both the tenant and the guarantor.
Right.
If anything is unclear, don't hesitate to ask for clarification.
Yeah. Or talk to a lawyer.
Exactly.
Okay. What else?
It's also really wise to set clear boundaries and expectations with the tenant.
Okay.
So have a conversation with them about their financial situation,
Okay.
their plans for making rent payments,
Yes.
their overall understanding of the lease agreement.
Gotcha.
You might even consider creating a written agreement between yourselves, just outlining, your expectations and any contingencies.
So it's like a separate agreement
Yes.
from the lease.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's just a way to make sure everybody's on the same page
Gotcha.
and to, address any potential issues before they escalate.
And so throughout this whole thing, like keep the
Yeah.
lines of communication open.
Absolutely.
Talk to each other.
Yes. Communication is key.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the responsibility, the potential downsides.
Right.
But what about the good stuff?
Yeah.
Like, why would somebody agree to do this?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's a way to support loved ones,
Yeah.
who might not otherwise be able to secure housing.
Right, it's your kid going off to college.
Exactly. Maybe it's a young adult starting out on their own, a student moving to a new city, someone facing financial challenges.
Right.
It can be a way to give them that stability and opportunity.
And they know that you're there for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a nice thing to be able to do.
It is.
If you're in a position to do it.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From like the basics of what a lease guarantor is
Mm-hmm.
to, the responsibilities and the considerations for both sides.
Right.
Is there anything else you think people should keep in mind?
I think the key takeaway here is that knowledge is power.
Okay.
So whether you're a renter, a landlord, or a potential guarantor, understanding how this system works is just crucial, right?
For a successful and positive rental experience.
Yeah, so do your research, ask questions.
Exactly.
Be informed.
Be proactive.
Yeah.
Be informed.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to wrap up our deep dive on lease guarantors after a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll have some additional resources for folks
Mm-hmm.
and some final thoughts to kind of leave you with. So stick around. All right, welcome back to our final segment on lease guarantors. We've talked about what they are, what their responsibilities are, and some of the things you should consider.
Mm-hmm.
But now I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk about resources.
Okay.
Where can people go to get more information about this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the most important things is to familiarize yourself with your local tenant laws.
Okay.
These laws can vary significantly from state to state, even city to city.
Gotcha.
And they cover everything from, guarantor qualifications to the process for releasing a guarantor.
So where do you even find that information? Yeah. So luckily, it's a lot more accessible than you might think.
Okay.
Most states and cities have dedicated websites or online portals that provide tenant resources and legal guides.
Oh, okay. So it's not like buried in some
Yeah.
government website somewhere.
Right, exactly. It's usually pretty easy to find.
Okay, cool. What about like organizations? Are there any organizations that can help?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of great housing advocacy organizations out there.
Okay.
And their websites often have a ton of helpful information about tenant rights and responsibilities.
Okay, that's good to know. What about like online communities?
Oh, yeah. Online communities and forums can be super helpful.
Yeah.
There are websites and social media groups dedicated to housing and renting.
Okay.
And you can often find, real life examples, advice on negotiating with landlords, tips on navigating potential challenges.
So it's kind of like, tapping into the wisdom of the crowd.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like getting advice from people who have actually been through it.
Right. Okay. And then what about like, if you've got a really complicated situation,
Right.
or you just need like some personalized legal advice?
Yeah, in those cases, it's always best to consult with a qualified attorney.
Right.
Someone who specializes in tenant law.
Okay.
They can provide you with expert advice tailored to your specific circumstances.
Gotcha. And they can help make sure that, your rights are protected.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot.
We've talked about what lease guarantors are,
Mm-hmm.
the responsibilities, the risks, the rewards,
The resources.
the resources. Yeah. As we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
what's like the one thing you want people to remember?
I think the key takeaway is just to approach this whole process with a proactive and informed mindset.
Okay.
So whether you're a tenant, seeking a guarantor, someone considering becoming one, or even a landlord.
Right.
Just understanding the legal and financial implications is crucial.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Exactly. And it can really empower you to make informed decisions and navigate the rental landscape with confidence.
Absolutely well said. And, as we've talked about throughout this whole thing, communication is key.
Yes, always.
Keep those lines of communication open between tenants, guarantors, and landlords.
Absolutely.
It can really prevent a lot of headaches down the road.
Definitely.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of lease guarantors.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been fun. It's been informative. Hopefully, it's been helpful for you all out there as you navigate the rental market.
Absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Keys to Success. I invite you to check out past episodes and follow us on your favorite podcast platform to get notified when new ones are released. And when you're ready to simplify managing your properties, be sure to visit us at www.payrent.com.